on the weather in parts of Central Europe because a firefighter has died during a flood rescue in Austria. Another person has drowned in Poland as torrential rain caused by Storm Boris continued to wreak havoc across Central and Eastern Europe. In Romania, 5 people have died. Several remain unaccounted for in the Czech Republic, while the Austrian province surrounding Vienna has been declared a disaster area. Some of the worst rainfall in the Czech Republic, for example, has seen around 3 months' rainfall in just 3 days. Well, Pierre-Jean Clausse is the European Union Climate Pact Ambassador. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How do you believe that climate change is playing into these kinds of extreme weather events?
Well, first of all, from what we see, given Storm Boris, we have months of rain onto several Europe's most historical capitals, Vienna, Bratislava, Prague, in just a few days. And you can definitely see that it's the heaviest rain in years and possibly in decades in these parts of Central Europe. And you can see that every year we see more and more reports on these phenomena being increased, especially you could see a few years ago in Berlin, if I do remember right, where there was increased case of flooding and many casualties that were happening there. And it seems that there is a higher frequency, and it is definitely linked to the increase in climate phenomena happening because of climate change increasing its effect.
Tragically, a number of people have lost their lives. Do you think countries need to focus more on building resilience to these kinds of weather events?
There is a definite need for resilience in that regard, and you can see that the European Commission, for that matter, deploys the civil protection units from the countries in the EU, and sometimes these countries in the EU can send themselves national forces to help on the work that is being done on the ground, to actually do both things, to do something where it creates resilience afterwards, after these disasters, and where it creates systems that tries to prevent them. And at the same time, that also aims to mitigate the effects while it's ongoing.
Yeah. So there are certain things you can do in the sort of immediate term and the sort of short-term future. But what about the long term? Because clearly addressing climate change overall needs to be sort of firmly on the agenda. How do you think the EU in general is doing on its climate change agreements and reducing its carbon emissions?
I do think that given the re-election of President von der Leyen on a second term as the European Commission President and the composition of her College of Commissioners still being decided upon, it seems that what we're on track to have is the European Green Deal to be kept as a pillar of the European policy, and it seems that it's going to be reinforced through one of its vital key components, that is the industrial policy. We cannot have a resilient disaster prevention policy if the infrastructures are not good enough and are not working enough. So I think that a big part of that European support must come on the infrastructural level and will come on that level.
I think most scientists, meteorologists, climate change scientists who've been observing the direction of travel in this accept that we are going to exceed that 1.5 increase in temperature. Even if all the climate change agreements were sort of fully enacted, it's almost like we are inevitably rolling towards that outcome, in which case these very hot, dry summers, the wildfires, the heavy rains, the heavy floods become part of daily life. And it's, as you say, it's how we live with that and how we work around it. Do you think that there is an inevitability to that path?
I'm thinking about one thing now that you mentioned this. Very specifically, you can probably guess I'm French given my accent. The thing is, when I was younger in France, there was this weather forecast presenter, that presented a map of France with temperatures expected by 2050. It was a few years ago, less than 10. And these temperatures expected by 2050 are now the temperatures we have, especially in the summer. And as you can see, there is a faster move towards these extreme temperature changes, more natural catastrophes, and more climate change-related events. So that's that's definitely a problem that we need to mitigate. But I don't think that this is hopeless. We are not in a situation when we are deprived of all levels of actions, both at the individual level and at the collective level, with the support of government, civil society, academia, government and corporations. We can do a lot of things if we just have that will to act.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us. Pierre-Jean Clausse, who is the European Union Climate Pact ambassador, on the really, really heavy rainfall that's caused an awful lot of problems in Central and Eastern Europe at the moment.